Carol Roth is with us, and Carol Roth is she's my favorite advisor on anything the economy, because she's a former investment banker, so she understands it at the highest level. And then she realized, wow, I think all of these people might be in league with Satan. My words, not hers. But she got out of that, and now she's trying to help the average person. She wrote The War on Small Business, and she has a new book coming out. We'll talk about it here in a second. Carol, welcome.
Thank you, Glenn. Very feisty for a Monday morning. And as somebody who went to school in Philadelphia, they do have a really repugnant fan base. So it is somewhat hard to root for them.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the game hadn't even started and they were tipping cars over. I mean, they just, and to have a fan base that wants to burn your city to the ground, there's no city better than Philadelphia to burn down to the ground. So I'm just saying, you might want to have a fire hydrant near some of the historic places, but the rest of it, pretty much can go. Anyway, Carol, we were talking last week about what's happening with China, and I know you have been watching the gold reserves from the central banks because it's kind of a tip-off. My grandfather used to say, if we only knew what the rich were doing before the Depression, we could have done that ourselves. And so we're watching all those things. And the rich of the rich, the central banks, seem to be buying a lot of gold, except for us.
Well, to be fair, we and again, this is all supposed. This is based on what's reported. Who knows what's actually true, whether it's us or China. But central banks around the world have bought a record amount of gold in 2022.
Why? Hang on just a second. So, Carol, tell me what's happening with China buying up the gold.
Yeah, so central banks around the world, record year last year, 2022, 1,136 tons of gold. The interesting data point was China. For the first time since 2019, they announced that they had increased their purchases, their net holdings of gold in November. And now there has been 3 consecutive months of them buying gold. And I really believe that this is meant as a signal that could be one of a couple of signals, but they all boil down to signals that relate to a new financial world order.
Would you do me a favor?
Yes.
I don't mean to put you on a spot, but could you explain how, this is so out of your wheelhouse and it's going to come out of left field, can you explain how electricity is made?
I can't. I'm the daughter of an electrician, and you're going to put me on the spot in terms of how electricity is made. But obviously, we do know that it's powered by all different sorts of, different sorts of fuels, including, particularly in the United States and other places around the world, fossil fuels.
But what do you burn the fossil fuels to move a turbine, right? And the turbine is moving, and it's moving, around copper wires, and the copper wires, that is actually inside a magnet. So without magnets, you cannot make electricity. Okay?
Correct.
All right. Would you do me a favor?
Yes.
I believe there's two particles or whatever, minerals or whatever, that make magnets. There's 2 different materials that make a magnet. I believe that like 100% of one of those comes from Russia and 100% of the other one comes from China. And I have read, but I want you to look into this. I just read this weekend that both of those countries just signed an agreement that they are working together now on the magnets, and that this is going to be another source of like gold for them that they will trade based on those materials as well.
All right. Well, I don't know about magnets as a hard asset yet.
No, I know. No, I know. But the only reason why I would bring this up is because when you look at what was being done to our electricity all over, and you look how we're being torched all over the country and all over the world, things to make electricity are going to become much more valuable. And I don't even care if it's backing up their money. I want to know if it's true that they are the main source for all magnets, and if they just did an agreement between each other that they're working together on magnets.
What I can tell you is that there are a whole slew of commodities, that need to be dug up from the earth that these green energy folks are relying on for electricity and for these other components that they have that are not only heavily available in China and Russia, but also all of the countries where China has been investing through its Belt and Road initiatives. So it would not be surprising that this would be one of many of them. But do we want to go back to the gold piece?
Yes. Sorry.
No worries. No, this is important stuff, and I think that it's all related. Basically, we really have to blame the government and the Federal Reserve. We have had the privilege of king dollar being the world's reserve currency. And, not to say that it doesn't have downsides. One of the downsides is that you have to manage the dollar for competing interests, the benefit of, the people in the U.S., as well as global stability. Our Fed and government have managed to do neither. We have eroded purchasing power here in the U.S., and we have not had global stability. So looking at China announcing, okay, we're signaling that we are increasing our reserves, could very well be a signal to say we're trying to, enhance the natural death of king dollar that the U.S. is putting forth. And they have been talking to all different kinds of countries about, settling in their currency, the yuan, which, given the fact that they're a communist country, people aren't really excited about. But if they can then say, well, we can swap that for gold, we're increasing our gold, that might give more stability to their currency. On the other hand, it could be a signal saying we're getting ready to invade Taiwan, because if you look at what happened with Russia before they invaded Ukraine, they were shedding U.S. Treasury securities and they were stocking up on gold, which is exactly what China is doing right now. So that could be a signal, but that relates back to a new world order as well from a financial standpoint, because we have never had a changing of the financial guard without a war preceding it. So, those two things are somewhat interconnected with, the dollar and, kind of the U.S.'s global financial standing right in the middle of it.
Are you following this balloon nonsense at all?
I mean, I love balloons, so of course I'm following the balloon nonsense.
So are you in Chicago now?
So I'm actually not.
Okay.
In an undisclosed location where the spy balloon cannot get to me.
I understand that. So they shot one over the Great Lakes. They brought down 3 of these things. And, the Pentagon is like, well, we're not ruling out that might be an alien ship from outer space. And you're like, what? I mean, this is so ridiculous. What? And I'm just trying to think, what would the advantage be for China if it indeed was a Chinese balloon to keep sending these things? That wouldn't make sense, would it, to you?
I mean, listen, I'm a financial person. I'm not a foreign policy person. So, my interpretation of this may make no sense. But it does seem, a test. How strong is the U.S. going to react when we push them? When we look at this administration, how far can we push the envelope without them pushing back?
So that is the idea, and I mean, all of a sudden we're tough guys on balloons. I mean, don't blow one up for your kid's birthday party because it might come under attack. But everything
and they're made in China, and so they might not be great.
Right, and everything that is being done now is to fight a war, at least a financial war. And I don't see this going. We had not great relationships with China under Donald Trump, but they were better than this. And this is just not going well. And I'd rather not be on the receiving end of balloons for my party from Russia and China at the same time.
Yeah, no, it's not a good scenario, and whether that war plays out, purely on a financial basis, where you get these different blocks that decide to do trade in a different way. Saudi Arabia started signaling that they are open to settling oil in currencies other than the dollar. We weaponized the dollar, obviously, against Russia
right.
During the Ukraine. So, it could be financial. God forbid, it could end up having some more, physical, actual war components. But all of these things, speak to the deteriorating strength of the U.S., in general and as a financial powerhouse. And I think that's the concern for your listeners in terms of protecting their assets, because, the U.S. dollar is not what it used to be.
Carol Roth, she is the author of a brand new book called You Will Own Nothing. We're showing the cover of it. When does it come out, Carol?
Oh, you're really so. This is the first time the cover has ever been seen.
It's really
so
good.
A little sneak peek for the Glenn Beck folks.
Yeah.
It comes out May 9th. If you go to carolroth.com/Glenn, you can leave your email and I'll send you more information as that becomes available. But we're talking about all these new financial world order things and how you can fight back. That is the crux of it.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Carol. Appreciate it. You Will Own Nothing. Make sure you grab your copy and pre-order now, because I have a feeling it's going to be big. Thanks, Carol.